Hey now. Welcome to the 28th episode of the Help Find the Others podcast. If you've been here all along, welcome back. But if this is your first time listening to us, well then welcome. I'm your host, Ruben, and as always, my co-host Stahn is on the line. How are you doing, man?
Doing great, dude.
Awesome. Yeah, it's good to talk to you. We haven't recorded a podcast in a while, so
yeah,
it's definitely good to get back in that mode. We don't have a guest tonight. Stahn and I just wanted to catch up on some stuff that he's had happen this late summer, early fall. And, I wanted to start out first before we get into your stuff, Stahn. I wanted to address an email that we got. And I love when people reach out and have a question or just tell me a story, even if they don't want to come on the podcast. When you guys leave comments or on YouTube or Reddit or wherever and join our Discord and send me emails, I mean, it really motivates me. And I know it motivates you as well, Stahn. But, I got an email last week and I wanted to just touch on that. So he didn't want his name or anything used, but his question revolved around kratom. And basically he was asking, that we talked about it, we started the podcast quite a bit, but we haven't really talked about it in a while. And that we kind of, praised it as this great thing. But then when he went to check out, Reddit threads, I think he said, a lot of people were warning about it. And so I just wanted to talk about that. And, where are you at with kratom, Stahn? And how do you feel? You've taken it for a lot longer than I have. And we haven't talked about it in a while, but how do you feel about kratom and its, possible negative side effects and stuff like that?
Yeah, I definitely think there is a negative to it. I think we did touch on, some of the negative when we first recorded about I think it was like episode 1 and 2 when we were first talking about it. I think we did mention, the addictive properties to it just because it is such a like pain relief and, some doses can be euphoric. Some doses can be stimulants. So, I think we did touch on that. My opinion hasn't really changed much. It's weird though, because I go in and out of seeing more and more articles that are trying to, hit peace and trying to say that it's a terrible thing. But what it really comes down to is the individual's responsible use of it. It certainly can be addictive. And, I think I even mentioned earlier on, like, there were times that I would take it for, weeks on end and crazy amounts and all that. And at some point it's just like deadening.
Yeah.
And you kind of want, I guess you kind of expect the individual to understand that, like, this is getting me nowhere at this point. So I need to cut back and slow my roll. But there are people that I'm sure just keep going and keep pushing. So it's definitely, it can be addictive, but so can coffee, so can anything that, is kind of not as addicting as like an opiate where your body becomes dependent on it or something, something along those lines.
Yeah. It's hard for me to talk about its dependency and compare it to, maybe some of the Reddit threads that the guy that emailed me, was reading, because I'm not coming at it from already being an opiate addict, because that's a huge portion. It's not like probably half or more of the kratom culture online, at least.
Yeah, the community.
Yeah, the community. I'm not coming from that angle, and I'm also not taking the dosages that they're taking. I see people on Reddit, that are trying to keep opiate withdrawal symptoms at bay, saying, take what, like 10 grams at a time and stuff like that, it's
like 3 or 4 times a day.
right. And that's probably my monthly, bi-monthly kratom intake,
Yeah.
I stick to, I don't know, maybe 2 grams max at a time, and maybe only dosing, twice in a day. But just from that usage, which compared to what most people seem to be using it in dosages, like compared to that dosage that is rather light in comparison, I do notice if I take it for like a week straight that there is some chemical dependency. At least, there's a biophysical reaction to not taking it. And that can span from anywhere from, depression that just comes out of nowhere, which, I mean, that can definitely be a chemical change in your body. And I think it has a lot to do with like the dopamine release, from, the euphoria of the lower dosages. But also, like I try to have a reason to take it, and it's been one of the best cold medicines I've ever taken, where, if you like kratom really fucking does that. And so like I found myself, especially like last winter, like if I was just kind of, had a runny nose and like was like, I fucking gotta power through this day, I would take kratom for maybe a couple of days till I felt better, until like, I was waking up and being like, hey, I feel okay. But then I was like, well, I'll just take some kratom today anyway. I was already like in that kind of like, well, why not? And then after like 4 days of doing that or so, I'd be like, I gotta stop. And then after a day, like the cold symptoms would come back. And it's like, it was almost like my body being like, oh, wait, if I fucking put some snot in this nose here, like they're going to throw some of that green shit down my throat again, and so like it's I definitely noticed that. And it just takes being aware, because then I know like, whoa, I gotta like lay off it for like a couple weeks or whatever, so I think the most I've ever taken it straight was like 2 weeks, and I definitely did notice like I felt like shit for at least the first day, of not taking it. But, I'm not equating that to withdrawals from OxyContin and stuff, so I can't really like speak on that. I would love to have someone come on the show that, has used it to get off of opiates, and whether they've kicked kratom at that point or not. Like I'd like to hear about that journey firsthand, but it's definitely like you could smoke weed for 2 weeks straight and then stop, and you're not going to have, you might be like, I wish I could get high, but like I'm talking at least the negative drawbacks of coming off of kratom after a couple weeks is worse than weed, at least.
Yeah.
But it's probably on par with like, if I tried to not drink coffee for a couple days, I would feel maybe even worse than it, so it's like in between the withdrawals or whatever of those two substances for me.
Yeah. And I definitely agree where it's the next day you're feeling something's off, or I will equate whatever bad feeling I'm having that day to the fact that I took kratom the day before.
Yeah.
And I don't know, if that's my own, like my mind telling me to stop taking it, or, what that is, or if it's actually what is happening. But, I definitely see that. The one thing that I see online though, that I don't agree with, that could be kind of a negative part of kratom, is people that are coming off of opiates and are now taking the high dose regimens of kratom multiple times a day and claiming that they're done sober. I guess I don't understand that. I guess I shouldn't really speak on it because I am not coming from that angle, like you just said. But I find that weird because it's definitely something, it's not nothing that's happening. So you can't say that when you're taking kratom, like you're completely sober. But from what we know, at least, it definitely is better than the physical dependency that opiates can hit your body with.
Yeah, and I totally, I've read stuff of people that used it to get off of opiates, and now they've been taking these mega doses for years. And I will say, like, at least from my rudimentary knowledge of the subject, like, it seems at least healthier than being a dope addict. And so, like, there's at least harm reduction there, even if they're addicted to it. I think going back to my friend that died, and I mean, he was fucking shooting dirty ass shit he got on the street into his arm and a fucking needle and shit like that. Like, as long as, like, you're getting kratom from, like, a good reputable source and it's good and tested and you're paying a little bit more for it, like, it's safer than heroin. It's a lesser of two evils. So I understand that part of the community, kind of warning. I think in the email he said it seemed like they were, like, warning people off of using it unless they were coming at it from a opiate withdrawal scenario. And I don't agree with that, though, because I do think people should give it a try. I think it's a very good medicinal plant. I just think for most people, the dosages you should be looking at trying, at least to start out, are much lower than what you're mostly going to read online.
Yeah. And like any substance, you kind of want to just do your own research, and just like the vaping death scenario, you don't want to just get stuff off the street, especially, like, you don't want to get kratom off the street, especially, but you definitely don't want to, like, go to a gas station and get it. I've seen that all over the place, and I don't know, that just scares me a lot, where, I'd rather find a vendor online that has reviews and, not just, like, taking a shot because it's there.
Yeah.
So as long as you do those things, and like you said, the key factor is being aware, there is responsible use for anyone that's waiting for them, that wants to try that.
Yeah. And I responded to his email, and then his follow up was in between the time that he wrote me the first email and I responded. He was like, I actually, didn't wait for your response. I ended up buying some kratom and taking it, and he was wanting to take it for to work out, which I think is a great use of it.
Yeah.
Especially at the lower stimulating dosage.
A whiter green.
Yeah, I mean, it really helps your exercise, like stamina and your motivation, to just, like, kind of push through. It's great for, like, that first day back to the gym after not being there for a while. It's like you feel really good, and like, just want to kind of kick ass. And so he wanted that. That's what he was originally trying it for, I believe. And he said that he took 5 grams for his first dose, and that it was pretty unpleasant and kind of ruined his day. And, like, he was, like, checking his pulse because he thought his heart was beating too fast and stuff. And I've kind of had that. I don't think I've taken 5 grams at once, like, without having built up a tolerance, which I found. That's one part of the, like, addictive quality of it, is the tolerance builds up real quick. So I think I probably have taken 5 grams at one dose, but I think that was a couple weeks in, of taking it every day. But anyway, yeah, he was like, that kind of sucked. And I think he said, like, he wasn't going to try it again, and that he didn't see what the point was. So, I understand his trepidation there. But I would definitely have to say to him, or anyone else that's had that same experience, like, try a gram first, and definitely, like, put it in capsules and take it that way. I find that's, like, a slower release or whatever,
Well, and you don't want the trauma of the toss and wash.
Yeah. And, I really think, like, try 1 grams. If it feels like nothing, try 2, kind of build your way up, because there's that slippery slope with it. And, I've had it one time, and I've seen it referred to on Reddit posts and stuff of, I think they call it the wobbles, like, where, like, your vision's kind of, like, shaky.
Okay.
And I have had that after, like, taking too much.
Is it just like being lightheaded, or?
Yeah, not much different from um the spins of being drunk almost, like that kind of feeling. Uh
Yeah.
and so um it's just it's one of those things. Just start slow and build your way up. I mean, much like with any substance, like there's no reason to push it and to be a he-man.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
so
But I mean, there's reports everywhere of various dosages. So you don't, I think it is very important to start small, because somebody's 1 gram is another person's 10.
right, yeah, and I mean, you take lower dosages too, and I mean
Yep.
we're both big guys too, so it's
Yeah.
like it's a powerful medicine. It really is.
Yeah.
Um,
Especially on an empty stomach.
Yeah, yeah, and so I'm definitely still a proponent of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't take it every day, and I definitely don't think other people should. And but I hope that we answered his email, or the questions in his email, or other people's questions about that.
Yeah.
Even if we don't talk about it, like we still take it. It's just it's, I don't know. It is what it is. But definitely keep emailing us if you have questions or you want us to talk about something. Like I really, we'll jump right on it. I mean, he emailed me last week and we're already talking about it. So it helps us,
Mm-hmm.
get the juices flowing for content to talk about.
What's the email?
Help find the others at protonmail.com.
Oh yeah.
But so since we last talked, you have had yourself a mushroom trip, right?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. So yeah, why don't you tell us all about that?
Yeah. So I guess I should preface it with my last experience, which was 3 years ago. Was the last time I took like a good amount of mushrooms to the point that I was tripping. And that was 5 grams in darkness, silence, all that. This trip really helped that one come into context, which is very strange. Um, I was expecting like a whole different experience, but what I got kind of was a retrospective with a clear vision of kind of what it was, and not specifics like to the detail, but more so. Um, I guess the biggest thing was like, you just like we were just talking about, you have to build up. Before that 5 gram, I only had a half an eighth experience. So I kind of just jumped the gun and dove right in, probably because I was just seeing YouTube videos and I was acting stupid and I was younger, And so, yeah, it showed me that. But before that, so the 5 grammer, 3 years ago, I went through the whole preparation phase where, I'm meditating, doing yoga, um, watching Terrence McKenna, Alan Watts talks, like reading trip guides, like all that for about 2 weeks before I dove in. And what I realized is that really colors your experience. And really is just, I guess in my view, and this is just my opinion, is really just a massive buildup of expectation. So anyways, to combat that, this time I was looking a month out, and I was going to do the same thing and do the yoga, do all the preparation that I've done in the past. And I think it was like a week into that month that I was going to devote to it, and I hadn't started, and I was looking at it negatively, as it's like, wow, I'm fucking this up. This is going to be a negative experience, that you're preparing for a negative experience. And I think it was some day that I was smoking or just thinking deeply about the situation. And it just hit me like that, what I just said, like I'm just building up expectation. There is no good or bad in that space from what I can tell. it's just an experience. It's just an experience. So instead of thinking that if I do ABC, it's going to be a good experience, and if I don't, it's going to be a bad experience, I just said I'm not going to do anything, and in that I'm going to remove any expectation, and I'm going to remove any idea that could be put into my head from an outside source of what is happening.
Yeah.
So I did that. The only thing leading up to it that I guess could color the experience a little bit was I read Michael Pollan's How to Change Your Mind. That was the only thing that was psychedelically focused that I did before the experience, and I read that in like the 2 weeks leading up to it. I finished it like the night before. But another thing I did to kind of remove expectations, because that was kind of the goal once I had the realization, was to remove any expectation. And another thing that I did that was actually brought on by a conversation we've had on here in the past was the idea that back in the day, and I'm talking way back, there were no scales. You didn't know what you were getting into. You didn't know how much you were eating. It's not like, it's not like these like cavemen or, even after that, it's not like they're like, oh, this is 5 grams, it was just, you ate what you had, mm-hmm. and the experience occurred. The experience occurred. So what I did was I measured a bag out. I weighed a bag out that was 7 grams. And I did that well before even the month before. So it was ready to go. And 2 days before I left for this trip, because I did leave my home and I went somewhere out in nature and rented a space, I just eyeballed it. Didn't weigh it, and I just eyeballed it. And I just picked out what I thought was right, and mm-hmm. I was like, does this scare me? Does this not scare me? And at one point I had everything in front of me and I was like, oh, I need to put one back because that looks like it's too much. So I did that. Right before I left, I had my girlfriend weigh it for me just so I knew afterwards. I didn't ask for it until, after the experience. And yeah, so I took off. And I thought that I had, removed expectation to the highest extent and prepared myself for a good experience. And this was also my first time tripping alone. This was also my first time tripping during the day. So those are two kind of exciting things I was looking forward to. So I went ahead, and for some reason in my mind, I was just like, I was pretty far out in nature, but I was still on somebody's property in a rental. So I didn't want to take it in the heat of the middle of the day because it was beautiful weather out. I didn't want to risk having people around, I guess. So I took it, I woke up and took it at like 5 a.m. And I went to bed early the night before, woke up, lemon teched it. You helped me out with that, which I appreciate. And took it down at right around 5 a.m., a little bit after. The sunrise was, 7:30-ish, a little bit earlier. So I was like, this is going to be perfect. I'll peak, and then like while I'm riding the waves, the sun will come up and it'll be beautiful. So I took it, and it was crazy, man. It gave me such a different perspective because the last time I had taken mushrooms was the 5 grams. So in my mind was this violent waves of experience of that, of the 5 gram that I had experienced in the past. I guess I just assumed that's what mushrooms were, and that was the farthest thing from the truth. And instead I had this like beautiful experience, no visuals or anything like that. I just laid in bed, put an eye shade over my eyes, and just like thought through things that were bothering me, like just thinking about my family and how appreciative I am of them. My individual relationships with them, that was a really big thing. And then I just like, I don't want to say there was like a presence or anything like that, because what I really think is it just like very, very much amplified my subconscious, to the point that I was kind of like just like going back and forth with myself, you know? But I guess you could say that there was something else there too that was just guiding the situation. But it was like a conversation within my mind. It wasn't anything like too scary. Everything that I could handle. And there was only one, I guess, major wave of the experience, and it was all just about my family and like how much love there is there. So, and then after that wave, I mean, it was still like I was still on mushrooms, no doubt, but it was definitely less than I expected, just because of my previous experience. Mm-hmm. And I was just, like I said, thinking through problems, and it was amazing. Like I would say, why am I this way? That is in my mind a negative thing, and it would just hit me back with like, because of this, and it would just make the most sense,
Yeah.
Or like, why is this holding me back? And it's like, because of this, and guess what? You just have to be okay with it. Like that's you have to accept it. Like that's the problem, is that you aren't accepting it. So accept it. I'm like, okay. Yeah. And then the big one was like, what is this voice in my head that says like I can't, or no, or don't? And it's like, all right, give me a second, I'll switch it. Now it's I do, and I will, and I I'll go. And it's just like that. It's as easy as that. It was kind of like your experience, with the meditation.
Yeah, and LSD. Yeah.
And it was just like, and it was just sorting everything out in a very, very rapid pace, to the point that like by the end of like 10 minutes after the big wave of the experience, after the 10 minutes where I was figuring things out, it was like, oh, I don't have problems. Yeah. It was pretty nuts. But yeah, so then sun came up. It was beautiful outside. It was like the last good day of where I was, 70-degree weather in nature. It was beautiful. And like by 9:00, which, in the 5-gram trip, 4 hours after I took it, I was, incapacitated. I wasn't able to even think about going outside and doing what I did. And on this experience, I went for a bike ride and like grabbed coffee and a breakfast sandwich from a local place nearby, and like went through these beautiful cornfields with trees changing colors, the leaves. And yeah, it was just, dude, it was amazing. Like I can't say anything bad about it, which like, I'm trying to avoid being like overly confident about it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And still remaining humble about the experience, but it was awesome. And so I went ahead, and because I was so functioning well, and like, talking to people, like ordering my food and all that, and everything went fine, is because of that. I was like, I texted my girlfriend. I was like, how much was it? And she said it was like, I think it was like 2.3. So like, I was surprised. I was like, I guess would expect that to be more than what I had experienced. Like, I guess more meaning like out of my control, or like more able to have a bad experience, especially with the first time being alone. But all in all, I was just like, all right, well, this is a perfect dose. Oh, and another thing that I realized during the trip was that anyone that takes, like, how can I explain this? I guess it just was a perfect dose. Like, because I picked it out, because I didn't weigh it, because of all that, and because I took it, that made it the perfect dose. You know what I mean? Like, no number to it would have made it the perfect dose.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess that's it. And like, it was incredible. I had some great insights. I think the biggest insight that hit me was that I was thinking about money a little bit, and thinking about the worry of it. And it was just like, and then I was thinking about money a little bit, and I guess it actually didn't come up until I started thinking about like hurt from people that have left my life. and that were very close to me for a long period of time. And I was like, why does that bother me to this day? And it's like, and it just told me like time is is like the most valuable currency. So I think that's probably the biggest insight that I took out of it. And it was like, money doesn't matter how you spend it. Time, how you spend your time, is really what you're doing here.
Yeah.
You know, like that is the most value right there is time, is currency. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's it in a little bit of a nutshell.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I think, well, you know, you said it was the perfect dose. I think it was the perfect moment, you know, like, for, you know, as much as, you said you didn't want to put expectations on it. You kind of created a great set there, you know, by just being, you know, submissive, I guess, and just go with the flow, which is, you know, what every psychedelic experience tells you, you know, is like, don't try to fucking control this. We're in control, you know, and, you know, a bad trip is just trying to fucking control what's happening to you and not letting yourself be overwhelmed, even though you're being overwhelmed. So I think your set was perfect there. You know, obviously, like you said, daytime outside in some sort of nature, you know, however much nature you can get in and, you know, be comfortable. And during the day is going to be the perfect setting. And then as far as the dose, you know, it falls into that terminology, right? Where like, some people would call 2 grams or 2.3 grams a recreational dose or a party dose. I disagree with that. I think it's a little more than a party dose. You know, I figure a party dose references back to the days where 4 people split an eighth, you know, so it's like, you know, or 3 people or whatever, you know, it's like a gram and a half is a party dose. I think, you know, and especially the what you got out of it and using the, you know, kind of meditative technique, you know, you took a therapeutic dose. And I think what you experienced there of working through thoughts, not having visuals, not having, you know, meeting entities or anything, but like just really working through your brain, and slowing everything down and just being fully aware and in the moment and grateful and contemplative and all of those things. You know, that's therapy. That's what people pay, you know, $50 a week for years to have someone, you know, give them baby steps to that point. You know, it's what people go through all the personal self-growth to be able to do. And mushrooms at 2 grams are able to do that in a couple hours. You know, I think, you know, when you talk about, again, it's all the terminology, but, you know, heroic dose is where you're completely taken on this voyage, you know, and like you said, with your 5 gram dose, like you wouldn't have been able to walk around and go talk to people after that, you know? So, I think that's the point of a therapeutic dose is you're wanting to get along in this reality, as best you can. And they help kind of, you know, put that all in perspective. You know, and I think having taken 5 grams or anyone that's taken more than 5 grams, yes, there's the experience you have shows you that, reality is a much more bizarre, reality and consciousness are a much more bizarre, thing than we can even imagine. But, you know, you don't always need that to get the benefit of, you know, mushrooms. I mean, it's really what you experience is, you know, what I've been preaching for a year or so here about, you know, like what my experiences in New York and like how powerful they are and how much of a, you know, calling I have to, you know, at least give people that, experience, but at least, you know, preach the gospel of it, you know, that how powerful that is, you know, and I'm glad that you were able to, you know, kind of find a way to make that work for yourself and have that experience, man. 'Cause it's magical, you know?
Yeah. And I didn't even know it existed, you know, I just was always prepping myself for the entities and for what the clickbaity psychedelic reports are, you know?
Yeah.
And I guess I just never could have even like thought of an experience like that occurring from these. And it was just powerful, man. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And when I was reading the book, the How to Change Your Mind, isn't that what it's called? How to Change Your Mind?
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe. Yeah. He mentioned that at like Johns Hopkins, they use 4-gram dosages.
Yeah.
And I was like, that almost would feel like that's almost too much. From my own personal experience, I guess I should say. But yeah, I just, and I even thought about my previous trip of the 5 grams multiple times throughout it. And I was like, was that wrong to do it at the time? And I was like, no, it wasn't wrong. You just weren't ready. And that there is, and it just told me like, there is a buildup to this, there is like, now I'm comfortable with doing it again, but at a higher dose.
Yeah.
But I'm comfortable with that. It's not like, even before I took this dose, I was scared of it. I told you, like, I'm pretty scared of this just because like I said, I was expecting like those violent throes of like the ups and downs and like the craziness of the 5 grams. And like, now it's like, maybe you'll get back at that point someday, but you'll be able to understand it better and you'll be able to experience as it should be. And, maybe, and another thing it told me was like, the entities, for example, like, those might exist. They might not exist, but guess what? Like, the people that see them are meant to see them, and the people that aren't don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, that was a big thing for me because that was something before, when I did take the 5 grams, that, I guess there was like some weird desire to see the other. And so that was all really, really cool to hear. And I guess to think, I should say, but I took it as hearing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and, I think, to reference the John Hopkins dosage, I think that works there. They have a very controlled set and setting with 2 sitters and, I think there's taking the higher dosages by yourself, even if you've got the set and setting down without having a guide, there's more chance, to lose your shit. And so
you could flip the switch real quick.
Right. So I think at 4 grams in that therapeutic setting, they're still having the same inner dialogue you had, just at a much more intense, much more, looking deeper into the archives and fixing severe trauma that's been piled on, underneath your ego and all that. And to where you need to get your ego out of the way to even access it, to where you weren't working through any sub ego issues, in your trip, you were just like kind of the normal confusion that everyone goes through. You were just able to tune out the noise and focus on the inside, and, you don't need to get your ego out of the way to do that. If anything, you were working with your ego, and
yeah, that's kind of what it felt like, really.
Which is a good thing. Like we, the psychedelic community, we talk about killing off the ego so much, but it's like, I mean, to some point it exists for a reason, maybe, you can't trip all the time. You can't always, having a permanent ego death. So like maybe
now with that mindset,
right. Maybe the point is to learn how to live with this motherfucker, and so that's why I'm such a proponent for kind of the level of experience that you had,
Yeah. And I mean, that's even something that I struggled to realize after the 5 gram experience. Like, I would say even like a year after, when I was talking to my girlfriend about it and still processing it because of how weird it was. Like, it's weird because you don't really remember much about it. You just know it was weird.
Yeah.
And she just helped me understand that, like, yeah, you might kill the ego, but guess what? You're coming back to it.
Yeah.
It's like, no matter what, we're stuck in this reality for this moment in time. So even though you can blast off and get away from this moment in time, it's not something that's gone forever. So you might, like you said, just like figure out how to work with it, and I really do think that's what happened.
Yeah. I mean, it's, and that's not to say I'm not a proponent for blasting off. I definitely think everyone has to have that experience too.
Certainly.
Everyone has to take it too far to know what is too far, but also, to fucking humble yourself. I think that's the other important lesson in all these psychedelics, not just mushrooms, is, you need to at some point have some experience that you walk away from going like, whoa, I don't fucking know nothing and nobody does, because like that's such a big, a big problem in the toxicity of our culture, especially with, online arguments and social media and stuff like that, is confidence and arrogance in our beliefs. And psychedelics, that blast off ego death, doesn't have to be permanent to have a permanent lasting effect that results in you going like, man, I'm going to be way nicer to people that fucking don't think the same way as I do, because neither of us know anything, and like, so, that's why, I like, the things we talk about and the people we talk to and the experiences they've had, because I believe it all, like I have no reason not to believe anything, so.
Yeah. Well, and something else that goes along with the ego death terminology. Beforehand, I always thought of it as ego being a negative thing, and as being, I guess, like a robotic controller, or on top of that, just being like an asshole.
Yeah.
Or I guess whatever is negative or whatever you think is negative about yourself, that's ego.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the case. That isn't the case. And there is good parts, bad parts, everything in between that makes up your ego. But without an ego, there is no understanding of this reality. So you need it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was thinking the other day about ego and stuff like that. And I was like, I was thinking about our brain as being a computer system, right? And it's like, our egos are fucking operating system. You can update it. You can, you can reboot it. You can defrag it. You can install a different version. You can double boot it. You can, you can run Linux and Windows or whatever. You can do all those things, but at the end of the day, our hardware doesn't work without it, you're running on CDOS or whatever, and so, there's a reason, like it's a minuscule moment in time that we are human and we have this consciousness, and that's all we can be sure of. But for whatever reason, like we're not egoless all the time. And so there's a reason that our human consciousness at this point in time builds up an ego. And, I think it's important not to let it overrun you and to be aware of its existence and its non-existence and what our essence is without it. But then I think the other important part is to learn how to update it to run properly and, and defrag it every now and then. And so like, that's kind of how I've come around with all the psychedelic talk of ego death, that it's like, the heroic doses are good every now and then, and you should at least do one. But yeah, 2 grams in nature during the day by yourself is fucking powerful. It really is, and, anyone that has an argument against that is probably someone that just takes high doses all the time, and it's like, they don't have that frame of reference. They've never had that 2 gram by themselves therapeutic meditative dose, and so, I mean, it's like, I don't know, it's a mute point at that point, that like, there's nothing to argue about there if you don't have that comparison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the being out in nature was really key, or being around nature, is very important.
Yeah.
I was watching Kenny's recent video. He did a live trip video. Kenny's a guest we've had on the podcast before. He spoke about salvia when he came on our show, and he did like a 40-minute video of him tripping outside in like the mountains. And one of the things he said, like while tripping, what I thought was really cool was like, once you kind of understand the psychedelic landscape, or meaning like you kind of know what's going to be coming your way in terms of feeling and like the waves and how to ride it a little more, there's no reason to stay inside after that point. Like, we should be out experiencing nature, because that is the best experience, is what he was that was like the essence of what he was saying. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't agree anymore. That's just spot on.
Oh yeah. I mean, well, and I mean, to be honest, nature is just as powerful without the mushrooms, if you let it. I mean, it really,
he said that too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we get stuck in the roads and alleys that we've created, and we're on this simulated reality of culture and everything like that. And it's like, when you step outside that and see things from the perspective of a tree or a squirrel, and just sit in the middle of the woods, not on a trail, not on a bench, like,
No.
like it's amazing. It's just as powerful. And it makes me grateful that, like, I've had, a decade or more of getting paid to do things like that, and I take it for granted. But then, hearing someone like you, that, I talk to quite a bit, and, and everything, but you live in a completely different scenario than I do, of living in a, huge metropolitan area. And that's not available to you. And it's just not been a part of, your everyday life. And it makes me realize that, it's like, I take that for granted. Some of the moments I've had of just awe of nature without psychedelics, and I think about that when I'm in nature with psychedelics. I'm like, man, this is great, but it's also great other times. Like I take it for granted. I always, have that moment of gratitude.
Yeah, because you've had it every day for such a long period of time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good to have both perspectives, just like with the different dosages of mushrooms. Like, it helps you appreciate the other. And that's why, like, whenever I go on vacation, it's almost always somewhere out in nature, in Colorado, or Michigan's a really close spot that has beautiful nature destinations.
Yeah.
And it's just, every moment is cherishing the outdoors, and like it makes those very special, but it also makes it extremely hard to leave,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird being in the city. But it's cool being in a city too. There's the benefits, but I think what else is really cool is having lived, 20 plus years near a city, of Chicago, like the size of Chicago. It gives me that, like I said, the other perspective, but it also makes me understand that my next move is going to be out towards nature.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't know that unless I had this.
Yeah.
Yeah. But trust me, I'm freaking counting down the days until I make that next move.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a different energy. I can't imagine it. And I know cities do a good job of having green space to where, even if you live in a city,
that's so fake though.
Yeah.
That shit is just fake.
Yeah. But
it's like, all right, JB Pritzker put up a park, like, cool, I guess, but it's just like, the only, like, the places in Chicago, the nature places, and I haven't been to all of them, I can't say I have, but the ones that, like, I really cherish are like the small offshoot town of Chicago parks that have like a beautiful view of the skyline, or that are like on the lakefront.
Yeah.
It's the ones like that. It's not like downtown Chicago, Millennium Park, or just like a lot of them just feel like a courtyard. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Have you ever been to what's it called? The Morton Arboretum?
I feel like I have.
The only reason I ask, and not to digress too much and go on a tour of Chicago or whatever, but I saw that they do a lot of tree research, and I was watching a training video for arborist stuff, and that looked like a really good park. I mean, it looked really big and everything. So I would look up the Morton Arboretum and maybe check that out some weekend.
Yeah, I definitely will. That sounds amazing. But yeah, I guess diving back into the subject matter of my trip, and I guess something I didn't mention that kind of, I guess, could have built expectation, but it did not, was the day before I left, I decided to go to a Reiki. I don't even know what the hell you call them, a Reiki person. And I'll wait to give my conclusion. But so I'm on Groupon, and which I guess that's probably like the first red flag now that I'm looking back at it, is that this person's offering their services on Groupon. But I see this person's Reiki place, and what Reiki is, I guess, in a nutshell, is energy work. Supposedly, this person has these open chakras in their hands. I learned all this, by the way. I didn't do my research beforehand, but they have these open chakras in their hands, and like they have the power, I guess is one way of saying it. And they put their hands over your body in certain chakra points and like channel their energy and refresh yours or whatever. And I don't know why I wanted to believe that, but I did. And I'm on Groupon, and I look up this lady's website, and like she's got great reviews. Everybody that she had was just like hundreds of amazing reviews, and I was like, this is great. So I went to the website, and like in the testimonials is like is a picture of her and like Kanye West. So like her giving Reiki to Kanye. So I'm just like, all right, I mean, I have to try it now, being from Chicago and being a fan of Kanye. I went and I was like, all right, I'm going to book this. Booked it. It's like, I'm going to do it right before my trip. Maybe it'll have some great effects. And maybe that was the reasoning behind the great effects. But I show up, go into the office or where the practice is going to happen. And she's like, it was just like a small talk therapy mixed in with like very strange chakra explanations and work. And like I was following along with her. Like, I was like, okay, like, this is all right. This is all right. Like, not believing in it, but like understanding the benefit of it. And then she was like, okay, well, let me show you how this works. And she pulls out a pendant that she says can, I guess, like track chakras or like understand it or whatever. And anyways, she like dangles it. It's on a necklace. It's like a stone on a necklace, like on a rope. And she puts it on above her palm as like a pendulum. And she like, it like is spinning in a circle, and she's like, look at it. Like, this is my chakras are open, as you can see by this stone that's going in a circle above my hand. Like, you see, I'm not moving anything. Like, and I'm like looking at her hand as the bullshit artist and the skeptic that I am. I'm like, and you could see like the elbow, like causing circles. And I'm just like you could have skipped that whole thing and it could have been a million times better. But anyways, I keep going. At that point, like, I'd shut down. But I keep going, and I mean, the whole experience was like her putting hands over me while I was laying down. It was very relaxing. Like, it was in dark, and like a ton of singing bowls, like hitting the singing bowls as they're on your chest to supposedly vibrate and open the chakra. And like, I mean, it wasn't anything like profound, but it was still cool. And I don't know. I don't know. But anyways, that all happened, and it was just like I left, and I was like, "This is the biggest bullshit," and there's a huge market for it, and yeah, so I guess you could say like it didn't do anything for me. And I'm sorry if there's Reiki practitioners out there, but I thought that was incredible because a ton of maybe some of you haven't heard of it, but it's like it's pretty big where I'm at. Like it's known, and it's been known for a couple of years now. Like, have you heard of Reiki before? I mentioned it to you.
I, yeah, and I definitely heard. So we were talking about it a while back on the Discord server. Because I think Adam in Canada that had been on the show, I think his mom does it, and she even does it over the phone, which I thought was just kind of funny. But
yeah, so it definitely works.
Yeah, I've never thought to do it, but I'd heard of it for sure, and I think when you told me you were going to do it, I mean, basically, I think my advice was like, go into it with an open mind and see what it is,
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the same thing with me going to the Medium in New York. It's like if you go in thinking this is bullshit with your arms crossed, the chances are it's going to be bullshit, So if someone's going to Reiki going like, this is what I need, I've tried all sorts of other things, I can't do that, and you go in hoping it's going to work, and at the very least what it's doing is giving you the same moment of solitude, well, not solitude I guess, but it's forcing you to be in the moment and be meditative, just like
exactly,
floating or yoga and meditation and stuff like that. And so like if someone has some sort of condition they're trying to clear up or whatever, and they have a restless mind, to take a moment to be in that setting of with singing bells or singing bowls and all that, like that's a nice peaceful thing that could be relaxing and therapeutic. And I could see that they leave going, oh, that really helped, but they probably could have done the same thing themselves almost,
and I think that's a big part of why I had that opinion about it, was because I've meditated before, and I've experienced that calm, and knowing that you can reach that calm and depths beyond that calm by doing it just like in a room by yourself. I was just like, all right, this is ridiculous. But for people in a bustling city, that don't take the time of day, I could see where all those positive reviews come from, and all of that.
And once you pay money for something like that, you're invested in making it seem like it works, But I mean, there also, there could be a lot of the same forces behind the placebo effect working, that, I mean, there's something there that, our body can heal itself physically when it thinks it's being healed. Our mind and our energy levels and our vibrations, they can all heal themselves when they think they're being healed as well, I would imagine, and, I think that Reiki could fall into that, you feel better because you think you feel better, or whatever. I don't know the reasons that people go to do it, and there's probably a whole host of them, but I don't know. There's something to the fact that the whole idea of chakras and energy, the not only the fact that those ideas and those philosophies have been around for quite some time, but also the fact that they seem to kind of create a community that really strongly believes in it. I don't know. It's not on me to say it's bullshit, It might
Yeah.
not be for me. It could be a waste of money for me. There might be other paths to the same thing, but you know, I can't really say it's all snake oil salesmen or anything like that, you know. I mean, there's some sort of validity to it, the fact that it's still around, you know. And I look at stuff like that the same way as I look at psychedelics. Like, it's possible that chakras and energy is such a you know, a hard phenomenon to observe that we just don't have the scientific instruments able to detect it. Much like whatever's going on in a psychedelic state, whatever we're entities we're encountering or places we're going to, um, we can't scientifically prove it, you know, because it's just such a bizarre concept to our consciousness, you know, and it's possible that chakras and all that are the same, you know, the same way, and that we don't even see the benefits because we don't even understand that, you know, like you mentioned that, you know, maybe your trip was that good because you had that, you know, that, you know, you
Yeah.
don't know. Um,
No, I don't know, and I guess I don't mean to bash it as hard as I did, but it was just like I said, just knowing that there's other avenues that are
yeah,
free to get to that same place was, I guess that was the part that like turned me off about it. And on top of that, the like the gimmick of the stone over the chakra, like I said, if you remove that from the equation, I would have been more into it than I
oh yeah,
was.
yeah,
Yeah. So it like acting like that was that stone and on that string was the instrument to measure it like
yeah,
that. Like I fully believe in like in chakras and energy. Like I'm all
yeah.
in on that. But I guess I'm just not in on this part of all
Or
that.
that particular person. I mean, like you said, you know,
I guess that
it's a
could be it too.
Groupon
Yeah.
and whatever. It almost seems like someone that fully believes in the power of Reiki would like give a free first session, you know, to see if you're into
Yeah.
it, and then, you know, maybe it's something that, you know, needs to be part of regular chakra maintenance. I don't know, you know, I don't know enough
Hmm.
about that stuff, but
Well, and I think that the lady gauged uh, me kind of falling out of the whole trance.
yeah,
Um, like I think she kind of understood that I was like, this
yeah,
isn't it. Um, especially because like after the session, like when she turns the lights on and um, she's like, "How are you feeling?" And you know, you tell her how you're feeling, like much relaxed. Um, she like goes into her sales
yeah,
pitch. You know, I was like, like you know, I do couples. You know, Christmas is just around the corner. This is that. Like, I understand, like that's the business, but it's like it just felt off. You know, I was like, this isn't the time for
yeah.
that. So, so all those, I guess, all those variables adding up, I was just like, this, I won't be revisiting this with this lady. I guess I
Yeah.
should say.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, like talking about this thing like Reiki, you know, it makes me think of the way that I approach stuff like that I don't understand, but I'm not going to just say, you know, I might think like, that probably won't work for me, but like, I'm not, it's one of those things that I'm not going to be like, wow, that won't work for anyone, you know, like it just, there's enough of the, you know, the mystic in me that I'm like, maybe, you
Yeah.
know, um, and it goes into the way I feel about psychics, the way I feel about hypnotists. You know, it's like it's just the brain is bizarre, and I can't be too sure about anything. You know, and you know, I don't want to go too much into it, but like I am going to make a video to talk about some of the response that we've had to um, our last um, podcast episode with Mew. I'll go more into the comments on gender and identity and stuff like that. But I also saw a couple comments like criticizing the small reference I had to like agreeing that psychics could be real. And it falls into this for me. Like I don't know if they're real or not. I went to this medium, as kind of an experience at a really special place to, share with my wife for our anniversary. And, it, taking the whole psychic part of it out of it, like the day was amazing. So it was worth it, whatever. I don't feel like I got ripped off by going to this medium. And, she wasn't 100% accurate. If anyone that was criticizing my comments on psychics wants to go listen to that episode, and I think we talked about it more, but it wasn't crazy accurate, but there was enough stuff to be like, well, that's kind of weird, but whatever. I never got the instance she was a grifter or anything like that. Certainly there's psychics out there that are. I think someone in one of the comments, even made reference to psychics that have been challenged to use their powers and have psychedelic or scientific results, have failed. And it's like, well, that falls into the same thing that I was just talking about psychedelics. Like maybe psychic powers can't be scientifically observed, and it maybe psychic intuition comes down to the same thing. Like if you're into it and more open, a psychic's intuition is going to be stronger, and so it comes back to how powerful our brain is. I mentioned hypnotism there, and I wanted to tell just a quick story of a very bizarre situation that I personally witnessed with hypnotism, where I was a audiovisual supervisor for the student union at my college, and we used to have
the classic hypnotist comes to school.
Right. We used to have comedians and singer songwriters and stuff like that. Well, this one time we had a hypnotist, and the guy's actually kind of famous. I saw him on some show the other night, but I can't remember where it was, but I was like, holy shit, that's the dude from the one night at the university. But anyway, so he was performing in the theater we had there. I mean, there's probably 400 to 500 college kids watching this hypnotist, and he does the whole routine. And I don't know if anyone's ever seen it. Have you ever seen a big hypnotist show?
Yeah, like when they have people barking like dogs or whatever,
right?
Or doing something crazy.
And so
I guess I haven't witnessed it. I've just heard of them because that same situation happened at my university too. I feel like it's pretty common at mid universities.
It is. There's like a circuit that these entertainers perform and whatever. And I think it pays pretty well. It's a pretty sweet gig. But anyway, I think I saw one on a cruise ship when I was real little. I can't remember. But anyway, all hypnotist routines start with bringing a large sample of people on stage and then performing some sort of trick or whatever you want to call it, that essentially weeds out the people that are
like the skeptics,
or that are susceptible to being hypnotized. And I think the one that this guy did was have everyone pretend there's a balloon tied to their wrist, and it's floating up and up and up, but they had their eyes closed, and they were hypnotized. And some people didn't have their hand up at all. Some people were just holding it out at their waist. And then some people were pretending to float away, and I don't know if they're looking for people that are really going to ham it up and play along, or if there is some sort of, personality type or brain chemistry or makeup or psychology that they're looking for. And then they tell everyone else to get off the stage. And then basically the rest of the show revolves around these people. And they'll be sitting in a chair, basically asleep until he calls them up to do whatever. And, I can't remember a lot of the stuff that he did, but it was pretty funny, and it was college kids, so it was racist, racy, and
turned them all into racist.
Turned everyone racist. It was ridiculous. No, but so it was all kind of a little bit sexual stuff like that. Well, he had this one gentleman. He had him do a bunch of stuff, and then he was like, all right, well, the show's almost over. I'm going to wake you up, but I'm going to leave a little kernel in your mind. And every time someone goes, hey, what's up? You're going to reply, where's my dick at? Where's my dick, bro? or something like that. Right. And then he wakes him up and he's like, how you feeling? He's like, good. He's like, were you hypnotized? He's like, no, I don't think it works on me or whatever. And he's like, are you sure? And he's like, why? What'd I do? And he's like, we had you barking like a dog and stuff. It's no big deal. And he's like, oh, okay, that's cool. And he's like, all right, you can go sit down. And then the kid was walking down the stage. He's like, oh, hey. And he called out his name. He's like, yeah. He's like, what's up, man? And he goes, where's my dick at, bro? And he like yelled it across the stage. And everyone's laughing or whatever. And like, he didn't even, you could tell by his body language, he didn't even know he said that. And then the guy closed the show, and everyone in the crowd was coming up to this kid and going, what's up? And he was like, where's my dick at? Where's my dick? And like, and everyone was cracking up, and he was getting really embarrassed because he didn't know why people were laughing at him. And so maybe he was hamming it up, but this kid would be a fucking quality fucking actor, because like 100 people came up, and this whole theater was laughing at him because every time they said, what's up, man? He said, where's my dick? And so fast forward like an hour or two, and I'm hanging out with this hypnotist, and like I was asking him questions and stuff, but like he had this whole kind of shitty, like, don't reveal the magician's tricks kind of like mentality. Yeah. Like I was going to steal his act or something, I don't know. But whatever it was, I mean, he was trying to like make it believe like it's, mystical and stuff like that, which I don't know, maybe it is. It's the only hypnotist I've ever talked to. But he was hanging out, like, changing back into his regular clothes and doing whatever. And we were wrapping up, and I think someone was getting his check and stuff like that. And this kid's roommates came to the lobby with him, and the dude was there, and people were still going by, and he was like freaking out too. And he kept saying, where's my dick? And like, he was like freaking out because everyone like kept coming up and talking to him. And he was like, what the fuck's going on? And like, his friends were really worried about him. And I think before he told the crowd before he woke him up that like, once he goes to sleep, like he'll be fine in the morning, or whatever. And they were like, dude, like, we can't wait that long. Like, he's crying and like making a scene and stuff like that. And so the hypnotist was like, do you have like a quiet room I could just go in for a minute? And I was like, yeah. And I let him in this room, and he did whatever in there. I didn't witness how he unhypnotized him. But the kid came out and was fine. And he was like, man, I'm real tired. Let's just go crash. And it was really weird where like, there was part of me, it's like, they're both fucking acting on this. Like he's a plant or whatever. But I mean, this was a kid that I saw on campus before and after that. It wasn't a huge college I went to. Like I didn't know him, but like he didn't come into town with this hypnotist, and, I don't know, man. It was weird. Like it kind of was one of those instances, and it's just like the moments of the medium I went to that kind of, was like, man, are psychics real? Like the hypnotist, like I was like, man, what is up with the human brain that like you can manipulate it that much, into doing whatever. And so, maybe Reiki is a form of hypnotism. Maybe psychics are a form of hypnotism, but there's something there. Like our brain is that bizarre that it can do that, I don't know. It's weird. I don't know how that fits in with psychedelics, but like it kind of does. Like maybe that's part of the psychedelic visions people have, are suggestion and being hypnotized and in a trance.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
That's a crazy story.
Yeah.
Like even after that, the hook is that even after all that and hours later, he came back.
Right. And like, that wasn't part of the show. Like that was
it was just a handful of people.
Right. I mean, and it was like out of genuine concern, not that the hypnotist was like concerned, but he was like, yeah, I get it, And but I really doubt, the skeptical mind would be like, he went in that room and gave him $20 and was like, all right, stop yelling about your dick.
Yeah.
Right? Or whatever. But like, I don't think that's what happened, like, I mean, he had control over that kid's mind, out of I don't even know what, out of hanging a pendant in front of his in front of his face, and maybe that's what that part of the Reiki is about.
Yeah, I could see it easy. I could see it that for some people that are foreign, this is not me just like bragging or anything like that, but I could see people that are foreign to a meditative experience that could kind of put them in a trance, like the singing bowls on their body and the vibrations of them and like the patterns of how she was playing them. I could totally see that could put somebody in a trance for sure.
Yeah. I mean, the trance state is real, like I think another thing, not just my own personal experiences, but I've referenced Graham Hancock's book Supernatural, but that's basically what that talks about. It kind of ties a whole bunch of different unexplained phenomena into like, it's all trance, and there's something to that state of consciousness of humanity ties into all these, chakra alignments and psychedelic states and psychic intuition and all of that. It's like kind of all the same energy and capability of our minds and our brains that, like, I don't know, you can't really be too sure to call anything bullshit, like if it seems like someone's ripping money off, like that's one thing, but like as far as like practices that have a distinct and tradition and following to them, there's something to it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I was pretty quick to call bullshit on that, and I guess that could have been a fault. But
well, I understand.
Yeah.
But
I feel like you would have done the same thing, to be honest.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. I'm not saying that I like go into everything and it works.
You have to have that open mind though.
I definitely, and I guess it's more, I definitely don't want anyone listening that's like, I fucking
love Reiki.
Go to Reiki. Yeah, I go every month, or whatever. Like, that's cool, and come on the show and talk about it, because I think it's very obvious that you and I are not the best people to explain.
Well, and the biggest thing is we don't know shit, so we got to stop acting like we do.
Right. Now, I will say it is definitely Reiki over the phone has to be bullshit.
I don't know, man. If you're through the telephone wire, you never know. It can go through that. You never know. But
yeah,
dude, something a little bit off topic, but one of the characters of How to Change Your Mind that was so fascinating to me that I've heard you talk about before, but like I kind of just like went along with the stories you were telling, is Al Hubbard. Like,
oh yeah,
Captain Tricks. Yeah, that dude is crazy. Like I had no like understanding of it. I just heard the stories, and I guess I probably was just like, all right, probably some of that's bullshit. But then like hearing it from his account was just nuts. And then like I went deeper dives and all that.
Yeah. So he's a character that there's so little out there. Like you said, you have to dig to find out about him. Man, like if I was a movie maker, I would make a biopic about him, and market it to the psychedelic crowd and all that, because, for as much, when there was the rumor that Jim Carrey was going to play Terrence McKenna in a movie, that was such a big thing. It was all over the internet and stuff like that. So there's a need for like psychedelic character biopic movies that are done well. And I don't know, Captain Tripp's story and the impact it had on humanity is almost more than Albert Hoffman, and more interesting and more bizarre. You have Jack Black play him or something. I don't know. Like that's kind of the character that I pictured in my head with him. But it's possible that he is just as pivotal of a role in LSD's like influence on humanity from 19 whatever on, he's as much a pivotal role as Albert Hoffman, who discovered the freaking chemical. You know, like it was Hoffman that pushed it out there to everyone and to every therapist, and you know, the fact that he had like this non psychedelic influence, like visitation from angels prior to it, that told him like a chemical is going to come into like your, you know, sphere of influence, and like you've been chosen to you know, be the person to help humanity with it and stuff like that. Do you accept the challenge? And he said yeah, and then like 5 years later is when he found out about LSD. Like, that is, you know, maybe he was making that story up, but it makes for a good movie at least. You know? I mean, it's I definitely encourage anyone to look up Captain Al Hubbard as much as you can read about him. There's only a couple books where he's referenced. Definitely Michael Pollan's book, but there's also I can't think of what the name of the book is, but it's about LSD and American culture. It's got like a shredded like American flag on it. It's trippy looking. I can't think of the name of it, but anyway, if you look on Amazon and type in Captain Al Hubbard, I think it actually shows up because you know, there's like a whole chapter on him. But I don't know. It is a crazy character from that book.
Well, and just like the influence he had, like with the government, like getting all the proper paperwork done so that they could do medical testing, and like, you know, flying government officials to get treatment, you know, and try the therapy. And like, that was his way of convincing them to further it, you know, whether it be a bill or a law or just standing up for it. And in that time, it was just nuts, man. He's flying everywhere. He's showing up in army fatigues. Like, it's just,
carried a big gun on his hip and stuff. And and you know, what's just awesome about it is like from day one, he was about the therapeutic positive potential of this. You know, it wasn't the Timothy Leary turn on, you know, tune in,
drop out.
You know, drop out. It wasn't this counterculture. It was incorporating it into our culture. Which is funny that, you know, in the whole course of psychedelic history, like, we're kind of now coming back full circle to the person that started the spread of it, you know, and what his intention was. And so I think he's an often overlooked character because he was behind the scenes, you know, and he wasn't, you know, making speeches and books and YouTube videos or whatever, you know. I mean, it was way before anything else happened, and it was behind the scenes. So I definitely recommend people look that up for sure.
Yeah, he was just the way that he portrays him in that book is like, this dude was basically like a movie character in real life.
Yeah, for sure.
That's nuts. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because I had remembered you talking about that. I would say even like before episode 10, and me not really understanding it. But now that I understand it, I'm just like, whoa, like the influence that this man had. And like, even, you know, when like the universities got their medical licenses to use it therapeutically or to research it in the ways that they did. And once that got taken away by the government, he was still supplying it to like specific universities, you know, and like, that's crazy. And like getting like crazy amounts from, you know, licensed labs and just flying it and giving it to Timothy Leary or, you know, obviously the universities as well, but also giving it to like those people too. That was so cool. Such a cool guy. And it's crazy because it is like at the point where he left it is now where we are right now. It kind of feels.
Right. Well, I mean, he came up with the method that Johns Hopkins uses of, you know, classical music, your eyes covered, a male and a female guide that say very little, and all they do is encourage you to keep going forward. Whatever you're encountering, go forward and counter it.
Mm-hmm.
And he came up with that method that they were like, hey, let's use this when they started back into researching it, you know, and it's completely full circle.
Yeah, and actually, that just reminded me. I forgot to mention during my trip, I had on the John Hopkins playlist that they use for the sessions.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, like it's like 5 hours long. I didn't make it all the way through, you know, because around hour 3 and in between hour 3 and 4, I went for my bike ride. But it was really cool. I've always wanted to try it. And then beforehand, when I found it, it's on Spotify, and I'll post a link in the description for anyone that's interested. But what was really cool about it was that they sourced all the songs from people that were doing like underground trips. You know, like that they were like the leaders of the underground trips, or the people facilitating the trips for these people that wanted it, but that were underground and not in a therapeutic session when it was legal. And they reached out to them, and part of the process was figuring out what they did, and part of it was figuring out what songs they played, and that largely is what makes it the playlist. And then another really cool component of the playlist was that it is all human made sound. So it's not maybe not human made is not the right word, but it's instrumental. It is vocal, but it's not digitally created. You know, it's not like is this Spangle or like something where it's just like completely where your mind is going like, whoa, like what's going on? It's none of that. It's like it's more like primitive almost. It's like, whoa, like you get the feeling that like I can create this, or like you understand how it was created. You know, you're not questioning like what is that sound. You hear it clearly and you understand it, and it helps you process stuff. And it's really cool. And you know, no real words to it until like the last 3 songs. Like it's like I think it's All You Need Is Love. There's a Spanish song that's beautiful, and then there's the last song is like, I gotta look it up. It's let me see here. Not in What a Beautiful World.
It is. It's Louis Armstrong.
Yeah. What's the name of it?
What a Beautiful World.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the last song. So like I what I did was like right before I started my bike ride, I just like fast forward to those last 3 because I knew they were going to be powerful. And What a Wonderful World. And it's just really cool. And I think I definitely want to try it again with you know, a higher dose where I'm kind of like locked in. I think that will be really cool, like compared to like at this point, like this time, you know, like 3 hours in, you could kind of just get bored with a song. For example, like if it's a 20-minute orchestra piece, you're just like, all right, when's this going to end? But it'd be cool to like really flow with all the ups and downs of those pieces, you know?
Right. To ride their ride. Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's a good idea to pull that playlist out. I hope I can try that sometime.
No, definitely, man. So we did get a call. If you want to, I guess, dive into that. Are you interested in that?
Yeah. Let's listen to that.
Hey, Ruben. This is I'm brother-in-law, and you came over to my place a while back, and we jammed and played music. I'm a drummer, and I actually came over to your place one night, and after we had played, we sat outside and had a conversation that's very similar to the podcast, which I think is kind of hilarious. But anyways, a question for the podcast would be like, maybe could you talk about getting like the set? Like, how do you prepare yourself for the set? In a lot of ways, it almost seems like the setting would be not as hard to attain, like an adequate setting versus like, everybody's got a lot of baggage. It's just like, how do you determine, like, okay, I'm ready and I feel like my set is as good as it's going to be? I've been thinking about it for a while. I just kind of need to pull the trigger, and I'm not really sure when I can just let go of some of that long-term stuff, and if that won't come up during my trip. It'll be my first trip. I've done some microdosing and some light stuff, but thanks a lot, guys. Love the podcast, and all the best. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Well, like he said about setting, you just need to be comfortable, so I think a lot of people get caught up trying to, do what other people do, and you need to have their setting. And it's like everybody's setting can be for themselves. And, unfortunately, that worrying about your setting will sometimes affect your set, like,
Yeah.
I think I've had several difficult trips where I'm like, oh no, I didn't get the incense lit first. And like, well, where'd I put it? And like, so it's like, I don't know, at some point you just got to let your setting be your setting, hopefully you're not in a truck stop bathroom, but but other than that, like you got to just stop trying to control it at some point, like we were talking about earlier. But as far as like preparation to get your set right, I mean, I think, it's like what we were talking about with your trip. It's like, do the things we've been doing, all the things we talk about on the Discord server about, personal growth that have nothing to do with psychedelics, of exercise, making sure like your physiology is right, and that involves your health, and, make sure you got good, healthy blood pressure. And like, there aren't things that your mind can run with and be like, oh man, I think I'm going to have a heart attack or whatever, like you gotta, fight off the physical anxiety that can come from a bigger trip, to when, like we were talking about ego death as a mental thing, there's a physical reaction to it as well that, makes you feel like you're dying. That's what the sweating is, and the, feeling like you're super hot and you're flushed, and, that your heart's pounding out of your chest. Like that's all like a physical manifestation of like the fear of letting go of the control that our ego has over us, so like physical health is important going into it. Mental health is important too, obviously, but then you run into that thing of like, well, then why are we, trying to work through things with psychedelics if it's not all peachy keen? Like how are these going to have curative properties if we're trying to avoid doing them when we have an issue, that we're trying to cure? It's so, I think that's the instance if like you're worried about stuff in the background that you're trying to work through, like that's probably where you need a guide, and that's probably, if not a psychologist or a therapist or something like that, like just a trusted friend that's been there, and a loved one is great, but unfortunately sometimes, a lot of us are in situations where our loved one, either we don't want them to know that we're doing it. I get a lot of emails about that, that like I hide this from my wife and whatever. And, I've been there, done that. Or, they just don't get it. They, even if they've done it, they've never gotten to where we're afraid to go, and maybe they can't really help in being a guide. So, I think your set it depends on what your intentions are. But for some people using it, your set can only get as good as it's going to get. And, and maybe that's the mushrooms have to take over from there. But that's where the giving up control comes into play, that you have to be not afraid of things in your background coming up. You have to be not afraid to face them when they do, and I'm not saying that from like I'm perfect, I know how to do that. because I don't. That's what I'm still trying to fucking, work through. But that's what I've come to realize from that. Now, I've come to realize that from having a meditation regimen, having a journaling regimen, which unfortunately, I've gotten away from with like my job and just how much I've been working. And I miss my meditation and journaling and gratitude regimen of daily stuff more than I miss, working out. And like, I miss that too. Like, I feel like a fat fuck right now, because like I've been sitting in a car driving around for 2 months, but I feel, even though I'm not preparing for a trip, I'm aware of my set at all times just because of, the amount of trip preparation that I've done in my lifetime. And I notice a huge difference in not meditating every day. And I miss that more than anything else. So like, as far as for any set preparation and whatever anyone's intention is, like the number one thing is to try meditating every day for a month before you even try to do anything else for that, because it is extremely important for our awareness and our consciousness, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for me, I guess the only advice I could give is when you're in the heat of it doesn't have to be a difficult trip, but like if you just feel it coming on, definitely practice like a mantra, the one that was used in Michael Pollan's experiences was something along the lines of like breathe, trust, surrender. And like if you just remind yourself of those things when you're going through it all, it can make the hard times, if there are any, a lot smoother for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's an important part of set for sure. But in terms of like getting it prepped up, and there's no like miracle for sure. Like you said, you're kind of just going in with what you got,
Yeah.
And the little things like meditation, any sort of alone time where you can just focus on the moment and being aware, those type of things, those are all great practices that help that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, well, and you said it earlier too, that, it's like the more expectations you have, the more like you're setting yourself up to be disappointed, you know? And I think like, again, it comes into terminology. I think the term set, if you're going to like think of like a movie set and, a backdrop and stuff like that, I don't think that's an appropriate description of what our mental state is in regards to a psychedelic trip, because a psychedelic trip is more of an improv sketch than anything else. Like there may be a few props, but for the most part, it's a black, pipe and drape behind you. Like it's not, it's not a fully formed set, it's going to go where it's going to go. And, I just know my worst times have been trying to control something and make it perfect. And like, no, this was my intention. This is what I wanted, and whatever. The stuff that you're afraid of like ends up coming up. The more you think about it, the more it can bubble up, So, thanks for calling in, and, definitely for anyone else that wants to call in or send a text. That's definitely cool to have that to talk about. Yeah. And I think it kind of fit in there with what we were talking about earlier with your trip.
Certainly.
And your set and setting. So that was kind of perfect.
Yeah, man. And we definitely wish you luck with your first trip. Sounds like a new endeavor for you. And, I'm definitely excited for you.
Yeah. And I definitely remember you, and that's kind of cool that you called in. So thanks for calling in, man.
Absolutely. All right, man.
Yeah. So that was good catching up, man. And definitely felt good getting back into the swing of things. And, we're going to reach out and get another guest on here pretty soon. We're going to try to get weekly releases on Saturdays, correct?
Yep. Saturdays at 10 Eastern.
Yeah. So I'm almost done with my job, and I'll have more time again, and we're definitely, like you said in a text the other day, like we're not going to go through the winter lag this year. We're going to power through, and I hope you guys, I'll help, support us with energy and doing all the things you do to keep us through that. So, yeah, man, it was good talking.
Yeah, I've been excited all week, man. I've just been, not even just to share my story, but to just get back on this. And I guess one of the things that when I was looking for direction in my trip, and not for a specific direction in the trip, but on my life outside of the trip, like I was like, what about the podcast? And my thought back was, that's really cool. Keep doing it. So like as soon as I got that, I was like, all right, we're going like 110%. Let's really dive into this. And I think the weekly episodes, and then I'm going to start releasing clips starting tomorrow. I think those two things, and then whenever you have your free time to do videos, like all of that culminating is going to be something really cool.
Yeah, man.
Sweet.
Awesome. Well, good talking to you. As always, thank you for listening to the Help Find the Others podcast. Please don't forget to check out our Discord server to connect with our growing community. The link to join can be found in the description. And if you feel like donating to our channel to help us grow, a link to our Patreon can also be found in the description, as well as some cryptocurrency wallet addresses. If you would like to be a guest on the podcast or have any questions about these topics, please email helpfindtheothers@protonmail.com. If you would like to leave a voicemail or a text message question for a future episode, Stahn, what's that number again?
567-233-1335.
Okay, guys, thanks again. And until next time, let's help find the others.